Hello guys. Today we are going to review the movie Bordello of Blood that came in 1996, and today we are going to watch full movie review and we'll talk about its facts. So let's start with its overview and basic facts. Then its title is Bordello of Blood that came in 1996, and its director is Gilbert and its screenplay was by Robert Mayers, and it's based on tales from a crypt comic series and TV show. And if we talk about its genre, then it's a horror, comedy, and supernatural vampire movie, and its runtime is approximately 86 minutes, and it's an R restricted rating movie. And if we talk about its main cast, then Dennis Miller as Rafe Gutman, main protagonist, Erika Eleniak as Cassandra, Cassie Hack, a demon hunter, Corey Feldman as Pee-wee, comic relief vampire hunter, and Chris Sarandon as Lance Delgado, vampire lord, and Angie Everhart as Dala, vampire prostitute, and Paul Rubens as Reverend clergy figure. If we talk about its plot summary, then Bordello of Blood is a supernatural horror movie. Supernatural horror comedy that follows Ray Putman, a cynical tabloid journalist who delves into a mysterious vampire-infested brothel in New Orleans. The film combines horror tropes with the tone in check humor characteristic of tales from the crypt style. And if we talk about main plot points, Ray Cutman, Dennis Miller, a skeptical journalist, investing a series of disappearances linked to a vampire brother called Bordello of Blood. His friend, a vampire hunter, is murdered by vampires early in the film, prompting Raph to continue the investigation. He teams up with Cassie, a former demon hunter, and Pee-wee, Corey Feldman, a quickie vampire hunter. They discover that brothel is run by Lance Delgado, Chris Sarandon, a charismatic vampire lord who uses the brothel to seduce and feed on humans. The climax involves battling the vampires, rescuing innocent victims, and confronting Delgado in his lair. The film ends with Rafe and Cassie surviving but leaving open the possibility of future vampire threats. And if we talk about critical review and analysis, firstly talk about its tone and style. Bordello of Blood is a blend of horror and comedy, emphasizing campy tone, cheesy special effect, and tongue-in-cheek humor. The film leans heavily into parody and satire of vampire lore, often exaggerating vampire tropes for comedic effect. The tone is light-hearted with self-aware humor and moments of genuine horror. If we talk about strengths, Camp and humor, the film camp style and comedic timing, especially from Venice Miller and Corey Feldman make it entertaining for fans of B-movie horror. If we talk about Vampire Lord parody, it playful deconstructs vampire myths, making it accessible and fun for horror fans. And if we talk about atmosphere, the New Orleans setting lends a gothic, spooky atmosphere that complements the supernatural themes. And if we talk about weakness, firstly talk about plot and pacing. The plot is somewhat predictable and thin. The story serves mainly as a vehicle for jokes and vampire action. Production values special effect and makeup are cheesy by modern standards, contributing to the film's cam appeal but detracting from realism. If we talk about character real development, characters are mostly caricature with little depth or growth. And if we talk about reception, the film received mixed reviews with some praising its can be fun and other criticizing its cheesy, fat, and thin plot. It has gained a cult following among fans of B-movie horror and tales from the crypt enthusiast, and notably the film is often appreciated for its nostalgic values and over-the-top style. And if we talk about key themes and motives, vampire mythology, the film plays with classic vampire traits, immortality, blood drinking, seduction, and weakness to sunlight, while exaggerating them for comedy. If we talk about seduction and description, vampires use seduction as a weapon symbolizing tempting and danger lurking beneath allure. And if we talk about corruption and greed, the brothel symbolizes decadence, corruption, and moral decay, mating with the crypt theme of moral camp and irony. The film embraces its campy nature, highlighting the absurdity of horror tropes and generic conventions. If we talk about notable scene and moments, opening scene, a humorous montage of vampire attacks, setting the tone of parody, and PV's entrance, Corey Feldman's quirky character delivers humorous one-liners, serving as comic relief. Vampire Brother interior over the top sets with gaudy decoration emphasizing the camp aesthetic. And if we talk about climactic battle over the top vampire fight scene with cheesy effect including the use of crucifix, sunlight and garlic as a weapon, and ending the tongue in cheek wrap up with hint at future vampire threats, typically of tales from the crypt style. And we talk about behind the scenes and the facts. A production of film was produced by Gilbert Adler, who also directed episode of Tales from the Crypt. And casting Dennis Miller primarily comedian and TV personality was cast as Rafe Gutman, bringing a sardonic humor to the role. We talk about the special effect, the vampire makeup, and effect are intentionally cheesy, embracing the B movie aesthetic. And if we talk about music, the soundtrack features a mix of gothic and funk tone, underlying the campy tone connection to Tales from the Crypt. The film is part of the Tales from the Crypt franchise, which includes the TV series and previous films like Demon Knight. And if we talk about cultural and film reception, cult classic status over the year, Bordello of Blood has developed a cult following among horror fans who appreciate its camp and humor. If we talk about nostalgia, many viewers already remember it as a nostalgic piece of 90s horror comedy. If we talk about criticism, some critics dismiss it as cheesy and poorly made. Fans enjoy it as a cheesy movie. And if we talk about comparison and legacy, compared to Demon Knight, another Tales from the Crypt film, which was darker and more serious. If you talk about legacy, the film is often referenced as quintessential campy vampire flick with an example of 90s horror comedy. And if we talk about conclusion, Bordello of Blood is a playful and campy vampire horror comedy that embraces cheesy effect, over the top plot, and self-aware humor. While it's not a film celebrated for its serious storytelling or high production values, it remains a beloved cult classic fans of B-movie horror and tales from the crypt aficionados. And if you talk about what I guess let's go for it. You have to wait for a little moment. If we talk about Bordello, Blood 1996, the ultimate film young and fact compilation. If we talk about introduction and content, background and origins, Bordello Blood is the third installment in the Tales from the Crypt film series following night. It was produced by Gilbert Adler and directed by Gilbert Adler himself, who also contributed to the Tales from the Crypt TV series. The film continues the franchise tradition of going for dark humor and keen satire. The film conceived during the 1980s, a decade marked by a resurgence of horror comedy film that combined scares with laughs. Examples include Everhart to Army of Darkness and From Dusk Till Dawn. Bordello fits within this, aiming to deliver a tongue-in-cheek vampire with a satirical edge. If we talk about culture and industry context, the mid-90s saw a rise in the B movies and horror comedies, appealing to niche audience and cult following. The Tales from the Crypt franchise had already established itself as beloved horror anthology, known for its dark and humor, moral details, and cunning mask of the Crypt Keeper. The film was part of a larger trend of horror film that played with genre convention and embraced the campaign parody. If we talk about opening and setting the tone, the film opens with various shortage of vampire attacks, exaggerated to parody horror tropes, climaxing with a tongue-in-cheek narration. This establishes a playful tone, signaling that the film doesn't take itself too seriously. we talk about main plot and character arcs, traffic treatment is cynical, vice cracking, and journalist who becomes embroiled in supernatural chaos is rooted in skepticism but evolves into elite and heroism. Cassandra Cassie Hack, Erika Elenia, a former demon hunter who provides expertise on vampires. Her character embodies the archetype of the reluctant hero with a dark past. PV Corey filled by the quirky comic relief vampire hunter whose embrace one-liners and eccentric personality and levity. Lunchtel Kickster and then the charismatic Empire Lord who runs the brothel. Charismatic but deadly embodying the seductive will of vampire. If we talk about supporting characters, include victim, minor vampire character, and comic relief figures are contributing to the film's campy atmosphere. If we talk about climax, the climax involves Southern at the vampire marathon with the and fight scene. Chichi special effect, numerous movements. The protagonist success in defeating Delgardi and his minion, but the film ends with Tom and Chick suggestion that vampires, humans are lurking threat, leaving the door open for future installment or sequels. If we talk about themes and symbolism, vampire mythology and parody, the film exaggerated vampire traits such as blood drinking, seduction, immortality, and vulnerability to parody or the convention. If we talk about corruption and decadence, the brothel symbolizes moral decadence and the seductive nature of evil. If you talk about good versus evil, the film plays classic moral dilemma world record meets but with the authentic Everhart, emphasizing the camp and irony. If we talk about sexuality and temptation, and seduction reflect themes of temptation, morality, and danger. If we talk about camp and irony, a self-overtone underscore the absurdity of gender tropes, making one a horror convention with deliberate exaggeration. And if we talk about character analysis, Ray Goodwin, Dennis Miller, talk about personality. Sarcastic, skeptical, witty, and cynical. Oh, the elegant hero who transitioned from disbelief to action. If we talk about symbolism, represent the skeptical modern viewer, poking fun at horror cliches while ultimately confronting the supernatural. Cashier Eleni personality research haunted by her past. Role the moral compass and expert in demon vampire law. Character arc from lone wolf to a team player. Her favorite. Her character embodies the fight against evil. P.B. Fieldman personality humorous eccentric. Truth comic relief parroting the typical nudity hero archetype. Iconic moments, his humorous one-liners and bizarre behavior add a layer of absurdity. If you talk about Lance Delgado, the surrender. If you talk about personality, charismatic, sinister, seductive, role the archetype vampire, villain, smooth, charming, yet deadly, symbolism, embodying the allure and danger of evil seduction and decadence, supporting character, include vampire, prostitutes, victim, and minor hunters, each adding flavor and humor to the narrative. If you talk about the visual and stylistic elements, the cinematography and style, bright, exaggerated lighting emphasizes the campy tone, gothic architecture, and new Orleans scenery evoke classic vampire lore. Talk about use of practical effect, costume mix, makeup, and Aesthetics are intentionally cheesy, embracing movie aesthetics. If we talk about special effect and makeup, vampire fangs, blood effect, and creature with makeup are intensely over the top. Vampire transformation scenes are CG but charming using practical effect for maximum can costume design over the vampire western fancy body and exaggerated themselves and revealing our body costume emphasizing the film's tongue-in-cheek sexuality. If we talk about music and sound, the soundtrack features gothic, rock, funky tunes and humorous musical cues. Sound effects are exaggerated, adding to the comedic and campy vibe. And if we talk about notable scene and moments, one's opening montage a parody of vampire attacks scene, exaggerated with humor and over-the-top narration. The brother interior artist used set design with vampire prostitute and decadent decor emphasizing decadence and morality. He is procreated, his humorous linus and eccentric views set the tone for comically. The showdown can be fight scene with cheesy effect, stakes and light garlic and holy water used in humorous way. We talk about either confrontation and tricks, the climax and the vampire minus defeated but the ending hints at with the threat parodying or franchise trope. If we talk about behind the scene and production drive, casting Dennis Miller, primarily a comedian, TV personality, was cast for his sarcastic humor. Filming location primarily shot in Los Angeles, some scenes set in New Orleans, but not with special effect. Practical effect, intentional cheesy costumes, design and makeup, and it Wisham, it be Wisham. Talk about script and improvisation, which involve improvisation by actor, especially males and female. If we talk about budget estimated around 14 million and vast expense approximately 11 million domestically considered a commercial disappointment but a cult hit over time. Video deception and legacy. If we talk critical reception, mixed negative reviews upon release, critics reported cheesy effect, thin plot, and capital. However, some appreciated its humor, nostalgia, and B-movie charm, cult following, and fan gained a dedicated cult following among horror and comedy fans, appreciated for its camp humor and nostalgic appeal. If we talk about influence and cultural impact, seen as a classic ensemble of 90s horror parody inspired later horror comedy film and parodies. If we talk about comparison with other tales from the great films, Demon Knight, darker, more serious tone. Bordello of Lord Lighter Empire, more comedy. Overall, Bordello emphasizes parody and camp serving as the top in tribute to vampire lore. Talk about thematic and genre analysis. Camp and parody embrace camp, parodying vampire cliches for humor, horror, and comedy. Balance scares with laugh, often leaning into absurdity, moral, and satire, using cartoons to satire independent sexuality and moral decay. And if we talk about final evaluation, Bordello of Blood is not a film for serious horror persist, but is a delightful for fans of Candy movies, horror satire, and it nostalgia, its cheesy effect, over the top performance, and playful would make it a beloved cult classic that endures as a fun, cheesy horror comedy. It was review of the we had a more. by Bordello 126 that refinement analysis fascinating facts. We talk about introduction and historical context, origins and development. Bordello that is third lived in details around the crypt, cinematic universe for Demon Knight. This franchise originated from the iconic Tales from the Crypt comic series published by AC Comics in the 1950s, was revitalized through a popular TV series and subsequent films. The film was developed during a period when horror films were increasingly blending with comedy, parody, and self-awareness, what some call meta-horror. The 1990s saw a surge in horror comedy hybrids that balance escape with humor, often with tongue-in-cheek tone. Without introduction and historical context, origins and development, Bordello plot is a third film in the Tales from the Crypt cinematic universe, allowing Demon Knight. This franchise originating from the iconic Tales Crypt comic series published by EC Comics in the 1950s, was revitalized through a popular TV series we talked about 98. Around 1996 and subsequent films. The film was developed during The film was developed during a period when horror films were increasingly blending with comedy, parody, and self-awareness, what some call meta horror. The film 1990s also a surge in horror comedy hybrids that balance scars with humor, often with tongue-in-cheek tones. Clifford Adler, the director and producer, was heavily involved in the Tales from the Crypt franchise, known for his work on the T-series. His approach for Bordello was to craft a campy, and humor-filled vampire story that paid homage to classic horror tropes while parodying them. If we talk about industry and cultural context, the mid-90s was a period marked by a fascination with camp movies and horror satire. The success of Demon demonstrated that there was an audience with comedic capital. The film's release was also influenced by the popularity of vampire themed media, including Interview with the Vampire and the rise of vampire pop culture icons like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which popularized vampire stories with humor and wit. If we talk about plot summary and narrative breakdown, Bordello Flood combines horror, comedy, and satire in a fast-paced episode style. The film's plot revolves around a skeptical journalist uncovering a sinister vampire operation. If we talk about opening scene and tone setting, the movie begins with a humorous montage showcasing vampire attacks exaggerated with over-the-top sound effects and narrations. This stabilizes the film's playful tone and signals to viewers that this is a parody-filled horror comedy. Main narrative arc, Redman, Dennis Will, a cynical tabloid journalist known for his sarcastic wit. His friend, a vampire hunter, is murdered early in the film, prompting him into action. Casey Hay, a former demon hunter with a dark past who teams up with Rafe. She is knowledgeable about vampire lore and provides the expertise necessary to combat the undead. PV corresponded with a quirky-eccentric vampire hunter who injects humor into every scene. His usual 9% behavior make him a memorable comic relief character. If we talk about Lance Delgado, Chris Stendhal, The shell-shading vampire lord who runs in the vampire brother, using seduction and charm to lure victims. It often supporting cast includes vampire prostitute, victims, male vampires, and comic their exaggerated costumes and behavior contributed to the camp aesthetics. Interval remixes the calamity was over the top showdown with the vampire brother with an exaggerated fight scene, cheesy special effects, and humorous moments involving Kali, holy water, and sunlight. The protagonist managed to defeat Delgado and his minions, but the film concludes with the Hollywood and cheap suggestion that vampire threats remains within the franchise traditions of open-ended finales. And if we talk about thematic symbolism, the radiant attack of empire, the film executes empire treats blood drinking, seduction, allegory to sunlight, garlic, and holy symbols these convinced through humorous and scenario such as vampires being defeated with comedy heroes, Vitaga decadence and moral decay. The vampire brother symbolizes moral decadence, representing themes of seduction, temptation, and corruption. It critiques social dependencies setting as a metaphor for moral decay. And if we talk about sexuality and temptation, vampires are portrayed as seductive beings, embodying themes of temptation and vulnerability. The film plays with sexuality, often using revealing costumes, suggestive dialogue, and humorous sexual innuendos. And if we talk about camp and irony, the entire film embraced camp itself about humor, exaggerated performances, and delicately cheesy effects. Iconic celebration of places. If we talk bit of character deep dive and archetype, Ray Gotham, Dennis Miller, bit about personality, self-restraint, private, skeptical. We talk about role, the relevant hero, with hero who evokes from disbelief to active participant. The symbolism represent the modern skeptical figure, often mocking horror tools while confronting them. If we talk about Cassandra, Cassie, Helena, talk about personality, depth, resourcefulness, haunted, role, the knowledgeable vampire expert, the moral compass. If we talk about character development, from a long to a team player embracing her past and fighting evil. If we talk about we fell personality eccentric, humorous, quirky role, comic relief, parodying the nearby hero tropes, effect, memorable images, humorous one-liners, and their behavior provide levity. And if we talk about launch, Delgado surrender personality charismatic, sinister, seductive role, the vampire villain embodying the value and danger of somebody is destructive evil that vampires represent charming but deadly. If we talk about supportive characters, include vampire, prostitutes, victims, and Menendez, each adding flavor and humor to the narrative. If we talk about visual style and aesthetics, cinematography, and set design, bright exaggerated lighting emphasizes scam. Without special effect and makeup, practical effect, costumes, prosthetics, and makeup are intentionally cheesy, embracing B-movie aesthetics. Vampire transformation and fight scenes are exaggerated, often humorous. If we talk about costume and character design, over-the-top vampire fashion, body flamboyant and exaggerated themselves in revealing costumes, emphasizing the film's tongue-in-cheek sexuality. If we talk about sound and music, the soundtrack features smoothing rock, funky tunes, and humorous musical cues. Sound effects are deliberately added to enhance the comedic effect. If we talk about memorable scene and moments, opening montage, a humorous take on vampire attack scenes emphasizing parody and camp. The brothel interior, gaudy dual sets designed with vampire prostitute and decadent decor. Evie's entrance is eccentric personality and humorous one-liners set the tone for comedic relief. The final battle, we talk about campy fight scene with cheesy effects, distinct garlic sunlight used humorously without ending in post-credit. A tongue-in-cheek wrap-up with hints at future vampire threats, parroting horror franchise tropes. We talk about behind the scenes and treasure. Casting Dennis with a family known as a comedian. Until personality was cast for his sarcastic humor and filming locations shot mainly in Los Angeles. Some scenes set in New Orleans were filmed as well. Special effect are intentionally cheesy practical makeup and costumes aimed at B-movie charm, script, and improvisation. Many scenes involved improvisation, especially by Miller and Feldman. We talk about budget estimated at around 14 million. Box office grossed approximately 11 million domestically considered a commercial disappointment, but a cult hit over time if we talk about critical and fan reception. Critical response mixed to negative reviews upon release. Critic pointed what cheesy, flat, with thin plot and camp. However, it gained appreciation as a fun, cheesy B-movie with nostalgic appeal. It about cult following, gained a dedicated fan base among horror and comedy enthusiasts, appreciated for its camp, humor, and nostalgic values. Pythagoras' legacy and influence, considered a classic example of 90s horror parody, inspired later horror comedy films and parodies. Pythagoras' comparison with other tales from the crypt films, Demon Knight, darker, more serious tone, Bordello of lighter campfire, more comedic. Aura emphasizes parallel satire and camp, serving as tongue-in-cheek tribute to Empire. Pyro, if we talk about themes or genre and analysis. Camp and parody embrace camp parodying Empire glitches for humor. Horror and comedy balances scares with laughs after leaning into absurdity. Moral satires or tropes to satirize social degradance and morality. If we talk about thematic symbols and moral messages, the films with themes of temptation, morality, and the seductive nature of evil, the vampire brothers serve as a metaphor for more decayed social corruption. The humorous tone suggests that horror and morality can be enjoyed with a sense of irony and fun. Our conclusion and final thoughts. Bordello bred is potential 90s horror comedy, beyond for its camp humor and playful parody of vampire mythology. While it may not be a critically acclaimed masterpiece, it has achieved cult status for fan of B-movie horror, cheesy effect, and strong and Chilean its over-the-top performance, colorful visuals, and humorous tone make it a memorable, enjoyable experience for those seeking a fun, light-hearted horror film. If you talk about additional trivia and fun facts, the character PV is a nod to eccentric humorous character often found in 50s and 90s horror and adventure films. Chris Vandenberg's Talgard was so famously portrayed Prince Benedict in The Princess Bride in 1987 and The Vampire Identity in Fright Night 1985. The film's tagline, "Vampires never say die," a playful nod to its competitor. The film was released on VHS and DVD, becoming a staple of horror collection and midnight movies career. If we talk about more, if we talk about Bordello of 1996, the ultimately the history analysis trivia cultural if we talk introduction and historical context. Bordello of Blood is the third feature film based on the tales from the franchise which originated from the legendary horror comic series published by EC Comics in the 1950s. The series was known for its moral details, dark humor and twist, and in the late 1980s and early 1990s, the franchise even revitalized through the Tales from the Crypt TV series 1989-1990, which became a cult hit with its mix of horror, satire, and game. The success of the series led to two feature films. Demon Knight, a darker, more serious installment with horror elements. Cradle of Bloods, a vampire more numerous sequels with character. The films were produced during a period when horror was experiencing reinventions with a surge of impending horror and comedy, parody and self-awareness. The creative team and production producers Gilbert Adler, who was heavily involved with the tales from the Crypt TV series and films. If we talk about director Gilbert Adler, aiming for a campy, humorous tone, writer a team of writers including Mike Ireland, Lansdale, noted horror author, and others contributed to the screenplay, emphasizing humor and parody. If we talk about budget estimated at approximately 40 million, a modest budget for a horror comedy of this scope, with one location primarily shot in Los Angeles with some making New Orleans, capturing the Gothic Southern Gothic aesthetic, Pittsburgh culture and industry landscape in 1996. The 90s was time of experimentation in horror with films like the scale 1990s from Dust Till Dawn and learning horror and comedy. Vampire remained a popular horror subject with pop culture icon like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The series started in 1987, pushing vampire stories into the mainstream. The film's campaign parodies and fit perfectly within this cultural environment, aiming to entertain both horror fans and comedy audience. If we talk about plot and narrative structure, overview of the story. Bordello plot follows Rep Cutman, a cynical tabloid journalist who investigates the mysterious death of his friend, a vampire hunter. His investigation leads him to Lance Delgado, Chris Stanton, a charismatic vampire who runs a decadent brothel in New Orleans, serving as a vampire decadence and seducts. Rave teams up with Casey Hack, a former demon hunter, and Peewee, an eccentric vampire hunter. Together, they confront vampire seduction, blood-sucking monsters, and the corrupt vampire Lord Delgado. We talk about key word points and shades and protection of with Gutman stabilizes his skeptical sarcastic personality. Since death and investigation, Rafe uncovers clues pointing toward supernatural activity. Arrival at the brothel, the team infiltrates the vampire den, encountering vampires, prostitute, decadent decor, and the seductive allure of vampirism. Vampire lore and parody. The film parodies traditional vampire's weakness: sunlight, garlic, holy water, often using alternative humorous method. We talk about showdown and climax of campy battle involving stage sunlight and humorous traps culminating in Delgado's defeat. Ending and post-credits scene. The film ends with a tongue-in-cheek suggestion that vampire threats may persist spellbinding horror franchise preventing franchise convention. If we talk about thematic and symbolic analysis, parody of vampire mythology, the film exaggerates and satirizes low action on their seductive nature, weakness, and the gothic aesthetics, turning these into humorous tropes. If we talk about decadence and morality, the brothel symbolizes social decadence and moral corruption, mirroring themes found in classic vampire stories but presented with irony and satire. We talk about sexuality and temptation. Vampires are portrayed as seductive, dangerous, against supporting themes of temptation and moral compromise. The film humorizes variously explores sexuality as a weapon and social taboos. If we talk about them and irony, The entire film embraces a camp aesthetic, deliberately cheesy effect, exaggerated performance, and humorous elaborating and ironic commentary on horror cliches. If we talk about character and performance, Reportman Dennis Miller, personality chair, pretty skeptical, talk character from disbelief to embracing the absurdity of the supernatural. Symbolism represent modern cynical mocking horror tropes. Peter Howard, Cassandra Casey, Elenia, personally tough, resourceful, haunted, and Peter Howard, the role, knowledgeable, empire, expert, moral anchor, development, from a lone wolf to part of a team, accepting past. If we talk about PB Corey Feldman, personality eccentric, humorous, quirky, and if we talk about role, comic relief, parodying the nerdy hero. If we talk about memorable moments, his bizarre behavior and the humorous one-liners. If we talk about Lance, the Delgado Chris Sarandon, personally charismatic, seductive, sinister role, vampire villain. Similarly embodies a dangerous allure of having the seductive power of vampire. We talk about supporting cast, include vampire prostitute victims, minor vampires, and comic relief characters, each adding flavor and humor. We talk about visual style and aesthetic elements. We talk about cinematography and set design. Bright exaggerated lighting emphasizes camp. Gothic architecture with vibrant gaudy decor. The Vampire Brothers interior is over the top, emphasizing decadence and fantasy. If we talk about the special effect makeup, talk about practical effect, costumes, aesthetics, deliberately cheesy vampire transformations are exerted for comic effect. But effects are over the top, emphasizing the B-movie aesthetic. If we talk about costume and character design, over the top vampire fashion including bloody suits, caps, and flamboyant accessories themselves and revealing or exaggerated costumes for humor and sexuality. We talk about sound and music. The soundtrack features gothic, funky tunes and numerous cues. If we talk about sound effect, deliberately If we talk about notable scene and iconic moments, often one is a humorous parody of vampire attack scenes filled with exaggerated sound effects and narration. If we talk about the brother interior, the bloody lurid set with vampire costumes emphasizing decadence and moral decay. If we talk about Pea's entrance and humor, his eccentric personality and humorous one-liners set the comedy tone. If we talk about final showdown, can be fight scene with cheesy effect, stray garlic sunlight used humorously. If we talk about ending and post-credit, a humorous tease that empires may still threaten the watertime franchisee conventions. Talk about behind the scene and production trivia. Casting choice Danish Mulahas cast for his self-adequate Palinian Marxism for her screen presence. We talk about filming location shoot mainly in Los Angeles, Celsius, mimicked New Orleans effect and makeup effect were intentionally cheesy, embarrassing the B-movie aspect. If we talk about script and improvisation, many scenes involved improvisation, especially by Miller and Friedman. If we talk about budget and box office, estimated at 14 million, grossed over 11 million dollars, considered a commercial disappointment what occurs us. If we talk about influence and cultural impact, see the advantage. 90s horror parody inspired later horror comedy films and parody works. We talk about comparative analysis with other franchises and reach demonized 1995. Like a more serious tone, and if we talk about Bordello, Blood Lighter, Empire, more comedy. Overall emphasizes parody, satire, and gaps, serving as a transition to Empire. We talk about thematic and genre analysis. Firstly, let's talk about parody and satire. The film playfully mocks vampire cliches, seduction, weakness, gothic settings, turning them into humorous tropes. And if we talk about horror and comedic balance, balancing scares with humor, often leaning with absurdity and exaggeration. And if we talk about moral and social commentary, uses horror motives to satirize decadence, morality, and social taboo. And if we talk about symbolism and moral message, empire symbolized temptation, moral corruption, and social decay. The brothel act as a metaphor for moral decline. The humorous tone suggests enjoying horror with irony and fun. If we talk about cultural significance and legacy, recognized as a cult classic, specifically, especially among fans of camp horror, parody, and B-movie. If we talk about recent trivia and Easter eggs, Chris Sarandon is known for his role as Jerry Radius in Fright Night, making his vampire role in this film about peace, horror, Dennis Miller involvement wrote a comic persona that contrasted with the horror genre. The tagline Vampires Never Shed Eyes a playful pun. The character PV is a nod to the playful eccentric characters often found in 80s and 90s horror. If we talk about final verdict and recommendation, Bordello of Blood is not a conventional horror film. It's a celebration of camp, parody, and cheesy movie aesthetics, perfect for viewers who appreciate the tongue in cheek humor, over the top performance and nostalgic horror parody. If you talk about the ideal audience, horror comedy fans called film enthusiasts, never shock campaign to seeking a fun, goofy horror experience, and if you talk about future influence and movies, this style and approach were influenced later horror comedy like some like Shaun of the Dead and What We Do in the Shadows. Talk about the favorite in midnight movie, screening horror festive and cult cinema clubs. We talk about conclusion that during some of parodies of blood, despite its modest box office performance and mixed review, Bordello has cemented itself as a cult classic cherished for its unbiased camp humor and affectionate parody of vampire. If we talk about Michael examples by 90s or playful side and continues to entertain new generations of fans who enjoyed its cheesy fact, outrageous characters, and tone in cheek tone. If we talk about more, if we talk about Bordello of the 1990s, our debate exhaustive deep dive into cult horror parody. Talk about introduction, historical significance, origin, and franchise development. Model of Blood stand as a third installment in the Tales from the Crypt film series. The franchise rooted in the legendary EC comics of the 1950s. The series was renowned for its morality. And again, if we talk about introduction and historical significance, then first talk about origins and franchise development. Bordello and the third installment in the Tales from the Crypt film series of franchise rooted in the legendary seamlessly into the tone of subsequent divisions that it to 1996. The franchise evolution into feature films was driven by the desire to capitalize on the popularity of horror and comedy mashup in the 1990s. The first film, Demon was darker and more serious, aligning with tradition. Bordello's Bordello Blood was conceived as a more playful, campy, and parody-oriented sequel emphasizing humor, over-the-top visuals, and satire. If we talk about Kitty Minds and production team, Clifford Adler, the creative force behind the film, was deeply involved in the tales from the script TV series, bringing a fondness for camp and blood. And if we talk about screenwriter, the screenplay involves a team including Zoe Arundel, a well-known horror and crime novelist who infused the script with dark humor and satirical elements. If we talk about casting choices, the film features notable actors like Dennis Miller, a comedian bringing his sardonic wit. Chris Sarandon, known for his vampire roles, and Corey Feldman, a pop culture icon with a critically persona. We talk about cultural and industrial environment, mid-90s. The 1990s saw a cultural shift toward parody, meta, and self-referential films. The success of films like Scream and From the Higher demonstrated audiences' appetite for horror films that don't themselves too seriously. We talk about vampires remain the local point in popular pop culture with Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Interview with the Vampire recurrent interest. If we talk about plot and narrative structure, detailed breakdown, opening scene, and tone setting. The film opens with an intentional cheesy montage of vampire attacks, shot in exaggerated colors, accompanied by humorous narrations. This immediately signals the film's strong, cheap tone and sets expectations for camp, parody, and over-the-top horror. And if we talk about main products, we talk about key scenes and highlights, inspiration of the brothel, the team snake into the vampire den encountering vampire, prostitute, body decor, and exaggerated gothic architectures. Humanist parodies of vampire lore scenes where vampires are defeated with garlic sprayed from a spray bottle or sunlight delivered via a giant spotlight, parodying classic weakness. The final button from the absurdly campy guide scene with cheesy effect stacks and humorous traps. Closing her post-credit teaser, the film ends with the tone urgency acknowledgement that vampire threats multi-series were dying franchisee cliffhangers. If we talk about thematic and semantic dialogue, I think it's enough for today. So it was review of this movie. I hope you like it. And if there was any mistake from me, then I apologize for that. Thank you for being here and thank you for watching. Uh, Goodbye.